Milk exploded across the polished cafeteria tiles. Sandwiches splattered, trays overturned, while laughter ricocheted under Crestwood Academy's glittering lights. Phones shot up instantly, red record dots glowing like hungry eyes. Jason Miller, star lacrosse captain with his designer jacket slung loose, smirked down at two brothers in thrift store polos. "Welcome to prep school, charity boys," he barked, his voice cutting above the crowd. His friends pounded the table in rhythm, the chant swelling like a drumbeat of cruelty. Malik Johnson knelt silently, brushing crumbs from the floor. His brother Marcus steadied a toppled chair with calm, deliberate hands. Their silence looked like surrender. To Jason, it was weakness. But stillness wasn't weakness, it was discipline, and discipline was their inheritance, a storm held in check, waiting. What Jason thought was a shove and a laugh was really a spark, and the consequences were about to ripple far beyond one cafeteria. Because this isn't just about two boys on scholarship, it's about every kid ever cornered by arrogance, every quiet student mocked for not belonging. What happens next will flip a golden cafeteria into a courtroom, and prove that silence, when rooted in discipline, can be louder than fists. This is Black Stories, where the pain of prejudice is told, and justice always finds its voice. If you've ever believed calm should not be mistaken for weakness, share this story and stay with us, because sometimes the quietest move delivers the loudest justice. They had grown up in a cramped two-bedroom apartment on the east side of Detroit, where the radiator rattled all winter and summer nights carried the echo of sirens. Their mother, Rochelle, worked double shifts at the hospital cafeteria, her back bent from years of lifting crates and pushing carts. And then there was their father, Master Darnell Johnson. To most people, Darnell was just another man in worn-out sneakers and a faded hoodie. But in their neighborhood, he was something more. A decorated martial arts instructor who turned an abandoned rec center into a dojo. The mats were old, the mirrors cracked, but to the kids he taught for free, it was sacred ground. He had one rule that he repeated until it was etched into their bones. Never throw the first punch, never show off. Protect the weak. Discipline is the real power. Malik remembered being 9 years old, fists trembling after getting shoved by an older boy at school. He wanted to swing back, but Darnell had crouched down, placed a calm hand on his shoulder and said, "If you fight to prove you're strong, you've already lost. Real strength is in knowing you don't need to." Marcus remembered nights in the dojo when their father would spar with both twins at once. They never won. Not once. But each time, when they collapsed in laughter and exhaustion, he made them bow to one another. Respect first, always. And then there were the neighbors, kids who came in scared and left walking taller. One boy, Jamal, used to hide behind his mom's legs because bullies tormented him. After a year under Darnell's guidance, Jamal walked home with his head high, no longer afraid. The twins saw firsthand. Martial arts wasn't about breaking boards. It was about building people. When cancer took Darnell 3 years earlier, it broke them in ways they didn't have words for. At his funeral, in the gray chill of a Detroit winter, they knelt by his casket. Malik's voice cracked as he whispered, "We'll never forget, Dad." Marcus added, "We'll carry it." That promise became their anchor. So while the world saw two quiet boys in thrift store clothes, Malik and Marcus carried a legacy in every step, every breath, every restrained movement. In the halls of their new prep school, they weren't just the poor kids on scholarship. They were their father's sons. And though no one else knew it yet, they carried a storm they prayed they'd never have to unleash. Crestwood Academy was nothing like home. On the east side of Detroit, the halls were cracked linoleum, lockers that squeaked, teachers who stretched themselves thin over too many students. At Crestwood, the floors gleamed like glass, polished daily until they reflected the faces of kids who walked them like a runway. Here, privilege didn't whisper. It screamed. Gucci sneakers squeaked down hallways. Rolex watches gleamed under the lights. Students were dropped off by chauffeurs in Teslas and Mercedes. Malik and Marcus arrived each morning in second-hand jeans and plain hoodies, carrying the same battered backpacks they'd used since middle school. The zippers stuck. The fabric was worn thin. But they didn't complain. They were there to learn, to honor the scholarship their mother worked double shifts to keep. But Crestwood wasn't built to welcome them. Teachers glanced past their raised hands in class, calling instead on louder students in designer sweaters. Administrators praised diversity in brochures, but behind closed doors the whispers spread like wildfire. They're charity cases. They're not like us. In the cafeteria, the divide was sharpest. Students swiped cards loaded by parents with unlimited funds. Malik and Marcus unwrapped peanut butter sandwiches packed by their mother at dawn. They ate quietly at the corner table, side by side, invisible until someone decided they shouldn't be. The bullies wasted no time. It started with trips in the hallway. A foot stretched out just as Marcus walked by, sending his books skidding across the tile. Laughter followed him as he bent to pick them up. Malik helped him every time, jaw tight but eyes steady, just like their father had taught. Don't rise to taunts. Don't waste energy on proving yourself. Then came the mockery of their lunches. "What's that smell?" one boy sneered, nose wrinkling at the sight of peanut butter and jelly. His friends cackled as they waved their trays piled with pizza and fries. "Guess charity only buys bread." Rumors came next, that they'd grown up dodging gangs, that they didn't really earn their scholarship, that it was handed to them out of pity. Each lie gained traction, whispered from table to table, building a caricature of two boys who hadn't even spoken enough to defend themselves. But bullies always want escalation. And now, in the cafeteria, the final stage was set. A Friday afternoon. Noise swelling like a stadium. Phones out, screens already recording. The twins had barely sat down before a shadow fell over their table. Jason Miller, the ringleader with blonde hair slicked back and a smirk that never left his face, leaned in. His family's name was etched into the school gymnasium. Entitlement was his inheritance. Behind him stood his crew, boys dressed in designer labels from head to toe, sneakers that cost more than the twins' rent. Their eyes sparkled with the cruel anticipation of a show. Jason's hand shot out, one quick motion, and the twins' trays crashed to the floor, sandwiches splattering, milk cartons bursting. The cafeteria erupted in gasps and nervous laughter. Phones tilted higher, recording from every angle. Malik froze. Marcus's chair toppled backward as he stumbled. Jason grinned. "What's the matter? Can't even keep your food standing?" The chant began in the back. Cruel. Rhythmic. Charity boys. Charity boys. The crowd was primed for cruelty, and in that moment, silence became heavier than sound. Then the last line was crossed. The shove came fast, cruel, calculated. Jason's palm hit Marcus's chest, sending him stumbling backward. His tray tilted, crashing to the floor, milk exploding across the tile. A white splash stained Marcus's hoodie, dripping down in streaks that looked like war paint. The cafeteria roared. Not cheers, not outrage, just the laughter of kids too scared to intervene and too eager to watch. Marcus bent down, hands trembling as he reached for the carton. His shoulders hunched, not from weakness, but from the weight of knowing every eye was on him. And then Malik moved. Not fast, Not with fury. Calm. Measured. He dropped to one knee beside his brother, pressing the chair upright again, brushing crumbs from the seat like nothing in the world was wrong. His hand rested on Marcus's back, steadying him. A silent message. I've got you. That silence was louder than any outburst could have been. But bullies never understood silence. Jason's smirk spread wider. That's it? That's all you've got? Just bow down? His crew echoed him, voices bouncing off the cafeteria walls. Bow down! Bow down! And then the chant shifted. Faster. Heavier. Fight! 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 Dozens of phones hovered higher, screens glowing, lenses pointed. Every student in that cafeteria was now part of an audience, primed for blood. Marcus kept his head low, wiping at his milk-stained hoodie, shame burning in his chest. Malik's jaw flexed, but his eyes stayed calm. The words of their father pulsed in his mind. Never throw the first punch. Never show off. Protect the weak. Discipline is the real power. Jason leaned closer, towering over them. You two think you're better than us? You think you belong here? Nah. You're charity. You're entertainment. He stepped back, grin plastered across his face, and raised his fist. The cafeteria drew in a collective breath. The sound of sneakers squeaking stopped. Even the chant faltered. Every eye locked on Jason's clenched hand, pulled back, ready to swing. For Jason, this wasn't just about a punch. It was about domination, about proving that the quiet twins weren't just outsiders, they were prey. He cocked his fist, taunting. Come on, tough guy, show me you've got something. Marcus's eyes darted to Malik, fear flickering. Malik didn't move, didn't flinch. His stillness was unnerving, a storm waiting behind glass. Jason laughed. He mistook that silence for surrender, and then he lunged. The crowd erupted, screams and gasps colliding, the word fight echoing louder than before. In that suspended moment, milk dripping from Marcus's hoodie, laughter cutting like knives, and a fist arcing toward Malik's face. Time slowed. Phones zoomed in. The first frame of a viral video was about to be written. And nobody in that room, not Jason, not the crowd, not even Marcus, was ready for what Malik Johnson was about to do next. Jason's fist cut through the air, a blur aimed at Malik's face. But Malik wasn't there. With one fluid shift, he stepped sideways. No wasted motion, no panic. Just a quiet, precise sidestep like water flowing around a rock. Jason's fist met empty space. His body pitched forward, momentum betraying him. And then, it happened. Malik's hand snapped up, guiding Jason's wrist with the gentleness of a parent steadying a child. One pull, one pivot of the hips. Jason's body flipped. He hit the cafeteria floor with a crash that silenced the room. Gasps ripped through the crowd. The phones shook in hands, suddenly unsteady. Someone whispered, "What was that?" Jason groaned, stunned, staring up at Malik, who hadn't even broken a sweat. Malik didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He simply stepped back, palms open, calm as if nothing had happened. But the bullies weren't finished. Connor, a linebacker built like a wall, charged forward. He swung his leg in a sloppy kick meant to crush Marcus. Except Marcus wasn't there. He caught the leg mid-air, twisted, and in one smooth motion redirected the force. Connor's body lifted off the ground, flipped like a rag doll, and landed flat on his back with a thud that rattled trays. The cafeteria exploded in screams. Phones rose higher. Fingers tapped frantically, live streams surging online. Hashtags were already being born before Connor even hit the ground. Marcus knelt beside him, pinning the bigger boy with just enough pressure to hold him. No punches, no wild swings. His eyes were steady, his voice calm. "Don't get up," Marcus said softly. The words weren't loud, but the cafeteria heard them like a gunshot. Jason scrambled up, face red, humiliated. He lunged again, only to freeze. Malik stood tall, centered, eyes locked on him. His posture wasn't aggressive. It was worse. It was controlled, a predator who didn't need to prove he could bite. The crowd murmured, shock spreading like wildfire. "They're trained." "No way. Did you see that flip?" "They're not fighting. They're controlling." Jason's hands trembled. His arrogance cracked under the weight of realization. He'd started something he couldn't finish. Malik bent down, picked up the chair Jason had knocked over earlier, and calmly set it back upright. He gestured toward it. "Sit down," Malik said. The silence that followed was unbearable. Jason, the cafeteria's self-appointed king, stared into Malik's eyes and saw something terrifying. Not anger, not vengeance, just discipline, the kind of strength you couldn't break. He didn't sit. Not yet. Pride wouldn't let him. But the crowd saw the hesitation. They saw the shift. And in that moment, the Johnson twins weren't victims anymore. They were legends being written in real time. The cafeteria noise faded, screams and gasps melting into silence, as Malik's calm face seemed to blur, replaced in memory by another. A gravel lot. Evening shadows. The smell of sweat and asphalt. Master Darnell Johnson stood barefoot on the cracked pavement, his GI loose, his voice low but commanding. The twins, just 12 then, stood trembling, skinny arms raised, struggling to hold their stances. "Balance," their father said, pacing in front of them. "That's the first lesson. Anyone can throw a punch. Few can stand firm when the world pushes back." Marcus wobbled, his legs burned. "Dad, it hurts." Darnell crouched down, eyes softening. "Pain is part of it, son. But pain is not punishment. It's preparation. Every second you hold this stance, you're building roots. Roots that no bully, no crowd, no world can rip out." Malik bit his lip, sweat dripping. "But what if someone swings at us?" Darnell's face hardened again. He straightened, moving with fluid grace. "Then you move." Not out of fear, out of control. In one demonstration, he sidestepped Marcus's clumsy punch, guiding his son's wrist with the same gentle redirection Malik had just used on Jason. Marcus's body tumbled safely onto the mat. Darnell didn't smile. He simply offered a hand. "You see? Control is power. Anyone can destroy. Few can protect." The boys nodded, breathing hard. But Darnell wasn't finished. He motioned for them to sit. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Listen to me. Never start a fight. Never show off. You hear me?" "Yes, sir," the boys chorused. "You don't fight for pride. You don't fight for applause. You fight for one reason only, to protect the weak his eyes burned into theirs. That's your oath. One day I won't be here to remind you. But when that day comes, remember, discipline is the real power." The memory twisted then, shifting. His hospital room, the beep of machines. Darnell's hand, once strong, now thin and trembling, gripped theirs. "Promise me," he whispered, voice cracking. "We promise," Malik and Marcus said together, their tears soaking the bedsheet. "Never throw the first punch," Darnell wheezed. "Never show off. Protect the weak. Discipline is the real power," they finished for him, voices breaking. His final smile was faint, but proud. And then, silence. Back in the cafeteria, Malik stood over Jason, calm and unshaken. Marcus held Connor, pinned with steady control. Their father's teaching wasn't just alive, it was unfolding. The cafeteria was no longer a place for lunch. It was a courtroom, a coliseum, a stage. Malik released Jason's arm with deliberate calm, stepping back as if nothing had happened. Marcus helped Connor to his feet, not roughly, but with quiet precision, his grip steady, controlled. The bullies stumbled back, faces red, chests heaving, but the laughter in the room was gone. In its place, a heavy silence, broken only by the relentless chorus of phones still recording. Then came the shrill voice. "Enough!" Mrs. Whitmore, the vice principal, stormed into the cafeteria. Her heels clacked like gavel strikes against the tile floor, her eyes locked on the twins, not the bullies sprawled behind them, not the mess of food and overturned trays, but Malik and Marcus, standing tall in the center of it all. "You two," she snapped, pointing a finger like a dagger. "Office. Now. You're suspended for fighting." Gasps erupted. Students looked at one another in disbelief. Marcus's brows knitted, his voice calm but steady. "Ma'am, we didn't fight. We defended ourselves." Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. "Don't play games with me." "I saw enough." "No, you didn't!" A girl's voice rang out from the crowd. Jasmine, a junior with a phone still raised, stepped forward. "I recorded everything. They didn't start it. Jason threw the first punch. Connor kicked first." Other voices joined. "She's right. Check the videos. They weren't fighting. They were protecting themselves." Mrs. Whitmore's face flushed crimson. "Silence, all of you." But the tide had shifted. Phones flashed, angled at her now, documenting every word. A chant began at the back, low at first, then swelling. "Play it back! Play it back!" Malik raised his hand, quieting the noise. His voice was calm, almost soft, but it carried through the chaos. "We promised our father we'd never throw the first punch. We didn't today. We only stood when we had to." That line struck like lightning. Students erupted. Cheers, claps, even tears from a few who knew what it meant to be cornered, mocked, underestimated. Mrs. Whitmore faltered, her authority unraveling under the weight of proof and public pressure. This isn't the place to discuss promises and oaths. Rules are rules," but Jasmine was already casting the video onto the cafeteria's smartboard. The screen lit up with the replay. Jason's shove, Connor's kick, Malik and Marcus's effortless, controlled responses. The truth filled the room larger than any rule. Jason's own laughter echoed from the speakers, followed by his fist swinging, and Malik's sidestep that left him flat on the floor. The crowd gasped again, even though they'd just witnessed it live. Watching it back, frame by frame, made it undeniable. Mrs. Whitmore tried again. "Regardless, violence is unacceptable." "No!" shouted a boy from the back. "What's unacceptable is punishing the wrong people." Applause thundered. A teacher near the door looked away, unwilling to meet the twins' eyes. For the first time since arriving at the prep school, Malik and Marcus weren't invisible. They weren't targets. They weren't charity cases. They were center stage, and the crowd had chosen a side. Jason tried to recover, puffing his chest. "This isn't over," he growled, pointing at the twins. But Malik didn't flinch. He didn't even answer. His silence was louder than Jason's threats. Mrs. Whitmore, her authority dissolving, finally muttered, "We'll review the footage." But her words were drowned out by chants rising from every corner of the cafeteria. "Justice! Justice! Justice!" In that moment, it wasn't just Malik and Marcus on trial. It was the system itself. The bias, the assumptions, the cruelty hidden under the sheen of privilege. And for the first time, the system was losing. By the time the final bell rang, the cafeteria felt different. Students whispered in hallways, replaying the video on their phones like it was a highlight reel. Jason and Connor walked out red-faced, trailed by stares that burned hotter than any shove they had ever delivered. But the real storm didn't break until nightfall. The clip hit Instagram first. A shaky 43-second video captioned, "Charity kids just schooled the bullies' respect." Within an hour, it was on TikTok, cut into slow-motion edits with dramatic music. Twitter picked it up next. By midnight, millions had seen it. Headlines flashed across feeds, "Bullies exposed at prep school." Discipline beats arrogance. Silence isn't weakness. Watch these twins flip the script. Comment sections overflowed. "Bro, look at the control. That's not just fighting. That's art." "Notice how they didn't even throw the first punch? That's discipline." "These bullies folded in front of the whole school, haha." And then a different kind of comment began to appear. One that changed everything. "I know those moves. That's Master Darnell's sons." The words came from a username tagged with a grainy old photo. An inner-city gym in Detroit. Kids lined up on mats with white belts tied around their waists. The replies flooded in. "Wait, Master Darnell? The guy who taught free classes on the east side?" "No way. I trained under him back in the day. Best teacher I ever had. Man saved my life. Taught me to defend myself when the streets wouldn't." Suddenly it wasn't just about a cafeteria fight. It was about legacy. Local news anchors picked up the story. The 6 o'clock segment showed the cafeteria footage side by side, with archive photos of Master Darnell Johnson in his GI, bowing with rows of children behind him. "Tonight," the anchor said, 2 scholarship students defended themselves against bullies at Crestwood Academy. But what the world is learning is that Malik and Marcus Johnson aren't just any students. They're the sons of a man many in Detroit remember well. A martial arts instructor who gave his time freely, teaching kids discipline, confidence, and respect. That legacy lives on in his children. The twins didn't see it live. They were at home, huddled on the couch beside their mom, Rochelle, watching clips roll in on a cracked phone screen. Her hands trembled as she recognized faces of old students leaving comments, people she hadn't seen in years. "Darnell's boys," one wrote. "He'd be proud." Discipline beats arrogance every time. But the twist that made the whole world stop came the next morning. Jason's and Connor's parents saw the clip. Wealthy, polished, accustomed to their sons being on top until now. They couldn't escape the humiliation. Their boys weren't trending for championships or achievements. They were trending for cruelty. And this time, the internet wasn't laughing with them. It was laughing at them. At the breakfast table, one father slammed his phone down. "You're going back to that school today and you're apologizing." Publicly. Another mother's voice cracked with embarrassment. "Do you realize what you've done to our family's name?" Everyone saw it. Everyone. For the first time, the bullies who had fed on silence were the ones cornered, forced to face not just the twins, but their own reflection on the world's biggest stage. The next morning, Crestwood Academy's cafeteria wasn't just a place for lunch. It was a courtroom, a stage, a reckoning. Jason and Connor walked in with shoulders hunched, their swagger gone. Behind them, their parents, suits, pearls, and eyes that carried the weight of humiliation broadcast to millions. The room hushed. Phones came up instantly, ready to record. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Principal Harrington cleared his throat at the front of the room, trying to restore order. "We've had incidents this week," he began, his voice stiff. "But the truth is clear. Video evidence has shown who started the fight, and who ended it with discipline." He turned toward the twins. Malik and Marcus sat silently, their posture straight, their faces calm. They didn't gloat. They didn't grin. They looked exactly as their father taught them to. humble in victory, unshaken in storms.